Good morning, Jayhawks. I'm your host, Lauren Ritchie. Your Good Morning KU Sports crew is here one last time to give you all the updates in the professional sports world. But first, the recent announcement of Michigan center Hunter Dickinson announces his commitment to Kansas. Dickinson was the #1 ranked player in the portal, and the Kansas community could not be more excited for this land. But today, we've got you covered on the NBA playoffs, the NFL draft, NHL playoffs, and the MLB standings, all right after the intro. The Royals. They currently sit at 8-24 and have the second worst standing in the MLB right now, behind the 6-26 Oakland A's. The Tampa Bay Rays have the best record in the MLB and lead the American League East at 26-6. Let's take a minute to appreciate the show these Rays are putting on for the MLB community. I mean, they started out 14-0 at home. No team has done that since the Detroit Wolverines in 1886. We can appreciate at least the American League rounding out at the top. Taking a break from the teams, let's talk about some of the new changes which have tremendously changed the games from the 2022 to the 2023 season. Starting with the most obvious change and the one everyone's talking about, the implemented pitch clock. The pitch clock allows for pitchers to have 15 seconds to throw when the bases are empty and 20 seconds between pitches with runners on. Hitters will also need to be in the batter's box with 8 seconds left. Pitchers who violate this rule are charged with a ball, and batters will be charged with a strike. Stadiums have 2 clocks behind home plate on either side of the ump and 2 more in the outfield on either side of the batter. The goal of this rule was to speed up the game time, as baseball is known to be a slow sport. The average spring training game with a pitch clock was 26 minutes shorter than last spring. On opening day, the average game was 2 hours and 45 minutes compared to the usual 3+ hour games. Another change being the banning of defensive shifts. This rule means that 2 infielders need to be on each side of second base while also being on the dirt. This rule is put into place to increase the batting average. Players are already benefiting from this rule because the league batting average is up to 249 from the 243 average last year. The next change is the pickoff rule. Pickoffs are now considered a disengagement, which includes when a pitcher makes a pickoff attempt, fakes a pickoff, steps off the rubber, or if the defense requests time. Pitchers are allowed 2 disengagements per plate appearance, but this resets if a runner moves a base. The goal was to increase action and encourage players to steal bases. The stolen base success rate has increased from 75% to 83%. The league also decided to increase the size of the bases from 15 inches to 18 inches. The larger bases are meant to prevent injuries from stolen bases. Looking ahead for the boys in blue, they were projected to win about 70 games, and with their current record, that's looking like a bit of a stretch. Leading the way in batting percentage is shortstop Miguel Garcia at .429, and Vinny Pasquantino with the most home runs on the team with 6. All around, this is not the Kansas City team the city remembers, but at least they still have the Chiefs. Speaking of Kansas City, the NFL draft was staged at Union Station here in the beautiful KC. Liam, tell us how last weekend all unfolded.
Last weekend, 259 young men's lives changed by getting drafted in the NFL. I'm Liam Carson, and I'm here to give you my 2023 NFL draft steals. All right, starting with Jalen Carter, defensive tackle out of Georgia. Leading up to the draft, Jalen was the #1 prospect coming into this. But he had some character issues off the field that caused him to slip down to number 9. Getting the #1 prospect at number 9 is such a steal for me because he's super fast out of his stance, and he uses his leverage to redirect the O-lineman. Next, we got cornerback Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. He's arguably my #1 cornerback in this draft, and he fell all the way to pick 17. And the fact that the Patriots were able to trade down and still come out of the draft with him is insane to me. He has the athletic and physical tools to be an absolute lockdown corner in the league, and he has really fluid hip motion. And I don't know how Bill Belichick traded down in the draft to get this dude, but it's crazy to me. Third, we have Jackson Smith-Njigba, a wide receiver from Ohio State. He's my wide receiver 1, and the fact that he's all the way down at pick 20 is also insane because he's super athletic and smooth, and if it wasn't for the injuries that he sustained last season in his season with Ohio State, he probably would have gone top 10 because of how good he played in his sophomore season at Ohio State. And next we got Nolan Smith, linebacker out of Georgia. I mean, this is a bonus pick for the Eagles because of how, I mean, they already had the first pick with Jalen Carter, and this is a bonus pick. So even if he turns out to not be good, that's okay because they got Jalen Carter. But he's an athletic freak, and he has all the tools to be insane off the edge with his 4.36 40-yard dash. And then next we got Joey Porter moving on to the second round. And this is a day one guy that fell because he's a super physical corner, and his father was also a Pro Bowler in the NFL. He's a big corner that can blitz, and he's super physical. Next we got Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame. He's 6'4", 250, which is the ideal tight end frame in the NFL. He's also a great run blocker, and he plays big when it's time for a contested catch. Lastly, I got Brian Branch, safety out of Alabama. This was also a day one guy that fell because of an undervalued safety position. He has insane ball tracking and football IQ, and he's fast and fluid for his frame. Multiple NFL teams walked away with some steals last weekend, and that's all I have for you. We'll send it to break.
You may not hear it at first, but it's there. Our chant, rising. On this summit, callings converge, voices unify into a chorus that sounds out for good, for greatness. Can you hear it?
Welcome back. This year's NHL playoffs have been anything but expected. The Panthers pulled off one of the greatest playoff upsets in NHL history. They overcame a 3-1 series by forcing a Game 7 against arguably the best NHL team ever, the Boston Bruins. Florida went on to win Game 7 in overtime and are now playing the Toronto Maple Leafs in round 2. The Panthers have continued to prove their determination, extending their lead in the best-of-7 series to 2 last night, with a 3-2 win against the Leafs. For the Leafs, this is their first time making it to the second round of the playoffs since 2004. They defeated the Lightning in a 4-2 series. They will have to win the next couple of games in order to stay alive in their second round series. The Devils secured their spot in the second round for the first time since 2012. The Rangers won the first 2 games of this series in New Jersey. The Devils were not done yet, though, as they proceeded to win the next 2 games in New York, and then ultimately forced a Game 7, which they won 4-0. The Devils are now facing the Canes in the second round. The Carolina Hurricanes defeated the New York Islanders in round 1 in 6 games. They finished the series off with an overtime win, sending the Islanders home. They lead the second round series against the Devils 1-0 and face off for Game 2 tonight at 8. Moving to the Western Conference, as an Avalanche fan, you can guess how upset I was when I watched the Kraken beat the Avs in Game 7 at home. In their first ever playoff appearance, the Kraken defeated the defending champions and are now facing the Stars in the second round. With the help of Roope Hintz, the Stars won the series against the Minnesota Wild in 6 games. Hintz set a franchise record for most points in a playoff series and is now 3rd for points overall this postseason. Dallas tied the second round series last night against the Kraken with a 4-2 win. The Golden Knights were the first team to make it to the second round as they defeated the Jets in only 5 games. They won 4 games in a row to take them to the next round, where they faced the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers and Kings proved to be both strong competitors as their series was all tied up at 2 games apiece. However, Edmonton has both Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. They won the next 2 in a row, advancing them to the second round. The Oilers are currently trailing the Knights by 1 game in this new series. Those are all the NHL updates I have for you. For all things NBA, let's send it over to Barry, who hopefully has some better news about Colorado.
Have been great, but these first round of the NBA playoffs have been meshuggah. There have been 4 series upsets, 3 overtimes, a 35-foot game winner, 1 50-point game, and 2 play-in teams that advanced to the next round in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th seed overall for each conference was eliminated. I'm going to notion on the MVP for each series. We're going to start out with the Grizzlies and the Lakers. We're going to actually take a turn. We're going to share MVPs with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. They both balled out against the Grizzlies. The odds were against him. AD accounted for half the Lakers' blocks with 27 overall. His most notable game was his game where he had 31 and 17. Now, LeBron's best game was his 22-point, 20-rebound game, and both of these guys did their share and did what they had to do. Lakers play tonight against the Warriors at 10 o'clock p.m. Our next game is Warriors versus Kings. It's so saddening for Kings fans. De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk tried. Domantas Sabonis tried, and it was just a struggle for them at the end. A great run while it lasted, and it just wasn't enough for the Golden State Warriors. Stephen Curry is the MVP of this series. He averaged 33 points this series, and his most notable game was his 50-point Game 7 performance. Next set of teams are the Heat and Bucks. The first seed Bucks lost to the 8th seed Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler was on a scuttle. He was the difference maker in this series. The Heat lost Tyler Hero for the playoffs, so we'll have to see what Caleb Martin can do to replace that role. Jimmy Butler's notable game was in Game 4, where he dropped 56 points. Heat fans were satisfied, and Heat ended them the next game. We're going to transition over to the Big Apple now. Big smiles in Madison Square Garden. The pickup of Jalen Brunson was a smart move by the Knicks. He compliments each player on that team. They played hard against the Cavs, ending them in 5 games. The Knicks' next matchup will be against the Miami Heat, and this series will be spellbinding. The Celtics and Hawks series was entertaining. The Celtics beat the Hawks in 6, but it didn't feel like it. The Hawks were trying to push it to a Game 7 in Atlanta, but the 1-2 combo punch from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown was just too much. Both combined for 62 points and move on to the second round. Suns and Clippers was another series that should have went to 7 games. The absence of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard hurt the team. Suns took full advantage of eliminating the first LA team. Devin Booker was phenomenal. His most notable game was in Game 5, where he sprinkled 47 points, 8 assists, and 10 rebounds despite having Kevin Durant on his side. Other notable games were between the Minnesota Timberwolves and Nuggets, as the Nuggets ended the series in 5, and the Nets and 76ers as that series ended briskly in 4 games. That's all I have for the NBA playoffs, and we're going to send it to Lauren Ritchie to close out this show.
Thank you, Barry, and everyone for all the updates today. The sports world is definitely one to stay updated with. Now, I couldn't go without supporting my home team of the Royals, but this weekend I'll be in my Warriors jersey. I'm feeling like Warriors in 5, but we'll have to wait and see how the series plays out. From inside the studio at KU, I'm Lauren Ritchie. Have a great summer, and we'll see you in the fall.